Hey, Myles here at Hyve, and welcome to this week's dry fire and live fire session. We are going to continue talking about shooting faster. This time we are moving on from different aiming schemes or different sight confirmation types to what you can actually do to physically move your trigger finger faster so that you can get faster split times. So if you're interested, make sure to stay tuned. All right, so the first tip to shooting faster when we are talking about physically moving your finger faster so that you can articulate the trigger faster is to focus on resetting after the shot and coming back on it to take another shot. What do I mean by that? A lot of people think shooting faster is about how fast you actually pull the trigger. While that is important, there's something even more important, and that is after you break a shot. So I'm going to pin this trigger to the rear. I'm using a DryFireMag. The DryFireMag allows me to reset my trigger, okay, without having to rack the slide and all that. So now you're going to hear the reset. You hear that little reset. I'm going to do it again, okay? So I'm going to break the shot. That click represents breaking the shot. And most people, they'll focus on that act, how fast they go from here to here. As I mentioned, that is partially true and partially incorrect. But what's going to be more important when shooting multiple shots and shooting really fast is not how fast you actually squeeze the trigger, because it takes very minimal effort. It is more about, and I'm going to exaggerate here, how fast you come off the trigger and back on it. Now, on purpose, I brought my finger all the way out just so you can see. So instead of focusing so much on how fast we're pushing or squeezing the trigger from where we are at the wall or a fully prepped trigger, okay, once we have our slack out, we are focusing on coming off and coming back on that trigger. So in essence, if we take multiple shots here, I'm going to go in slow-mo. I break one shot, I'm off of it, so I can take another shot right away. So as soon as I come off, I'm ready to take another shot. And this is one of the reasons why when doing dry fire and working reset and prepping, coming off the trigger and back on, I like to use the DryFireMag. So this is going to give you that immediate feedback. So the first tip here, when you are shooting quickly, right, multiple shot engagements, you should focus, I'm going to take my support hand out here, on the reset and prep, okay? Get off the trigger, get back on it. Now, you might ask, do you need to keep your finger on the trigger? There are different schools of thought. You know, a lot of people think that you always have to, but there are a lot of great shooters who don't do that, right? So that they avoid any chance of trigger freeze or things like that. But then you have a lot of shooters who will say, always have contact with the trigger. Okay, that's for this video, that's neither here or there. You use the technique that you want to, but the main point is whichever technique you use, you have to come off that trigger and back on it to take another shot. So when we're doing our dry fire session, you first want to start off with doing whatever dry fire routine you want. But when you're taking multiple shots, you are focusing on getting off the trigger and right back on it. So right now you can't see it, but it's all happening right here with my trigger finger. That is the first step. Don't worry so much about how fast you're pulling it, because again, don't really focus on how fast you're squeezing the trigger, because it really does take minimal effort. You know, probably the max for a striker fired pistol is 6 pounds, which is not a lot. Where more effort is required is resetting and prepping. To practice this, you're going to do exactly what I just showed you. You're working the mechanics, but then after you get a good feel for it, you're comfortable, you're confident, then you want to use a timer that picks up dry fire shots. And you can start off with just 2 shots and get the total time. And clearly what you're trying to do when you're breaking those 2 dry fire shots is to get the shortest amount of time possible. And you're only going to be able to do this if you're using the DryFireMag and a timer that picks up dry fire shots. One of the timers that I do recommend is the Shooter's Global Smart Timer. So what you're going to do is you're just taking 2 shots. You can already start from a ready position or on target. And I'm going to start the timer. I'm going to do this one slow here. Maybe I'm just beginning and working on my reset and prep. And that time was 1:72. Okay, so this picked up both shots, you know, relatively slow there. So then my goal would be to do the same exact thing and pick up the speed. Right, so that one was a 0.75. So this dry fire timer is picking up the dry fire shots, and the whole idea is I'm trying to take those 2 shots quickly and beat my part times or my baseline times. So that would be the next step. Use an actual timer to get the data. Before moving on, I do want to touch on something very important. A lot of people in the shooting world want really short, fast split times, you know, blazing like 0.11s, 0.12s, and that's really cool. Just something that I do want to convey in the defensive tactical world, our brains can't process everything at, let's say, a 0.10 split, 0.11 split. There is kind of a baseline standard where a lot of people will say, a lot of studies, that we need about 0.25 seconds to process everything going on in between shots. So I do want to throw that out there. It's not to say that some people can't shoot faster than 0.25 and take all the information in around them, but for your average shooter, that's how much time you need in between shots to ensure that you want to shoot whatever it is that you want to shoot, to take in different information that's happening, to be able to make sure that you are shooting an actual threat versus letting a round fly somewhere else. So just keep that in mind. The last thing we're going to talk about when speeding up your physical trigger squeeze is to relax your firing hand grip. When a lot of shooters first learn to shoot, they might be taught something aligned with just grip the gun hard with both hands, okay, without disturbing the sights. And that's not wrong. You know, there's a time and place for that, where perhaps beginners, you want to keep things very, very simple. So you tell them, squeeze it really hard without disturbing the sights. But now let's pretend you have more experience and you're ready for another level. When you are able to control the gun very well with your grip, and I can't tell you exactly when that's going to be, you can begin to experiment with how hard you have to grip the gun with your firing hand. The key thing to understand here is this: when you squeeze your firing hand very hard, and let's say I put my index finger out here because that's my trigger finger, there's going to be a lot of tension. So I'm not going to be able to move my trigger finger as fast as I can. I need to loosen up my firing hand grip, and this will allow me to move the trigger finger faster. However, I can't tell you exactly how much pressure to release with your firing hand. Over time, you'll need to experiment and find the happy medium where you have full control over your pistol with less amount of pressure, which is going to allow you now to articulate the trigger finger faster. So this is something you can experiment with, and with a DryFireMag, you'll be able to do this where you can take quick shots while loosening up your grip here. But for this particular technique or skill set, actually moving your trigger finger faster by loosening up your grip pressure, it's better to do this first live fire to understand the exact amount of grip pressure you need to balance controlling the pistol with your firing hand while still allowing you to shoot faster. And you want to understand what that pressure is, that sensation, what it feels like, because then you can mimic it in dry fire. If you go directly to dry fire, you won't know exactly how much pressure you need to control the pistol while allowing you to move the trigger finger faster. So again, you want to do this live fire first, then move on to dry fire so that your dry fire is more realistic because you're using the proper pressures. All right, let's move on to the live fire session here. I have a target down range, doesn't matter the distance. You can choose anything that is appropriate for your skill level. I'm already loaded. You want to have a timer for this as well because we need to track our actual data because we are working on increasing the speed of our trigger press. And we're going to start off with what we did in dry fire, and that is going to be 2 shots on the buzzer. So we are going to do this on target because we don't have to worry about this right now. We're just working on trying to reset and prep right away. We're going to focus on that first. We will deal with the pressure later on. So I'm going to start my timer, then take 2 shots once the buzzer sounds. Okay, so that is a 0.45 with a 0.19 split. Okay, so that would be my baseline. So now what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to tell myself, okay, really come off that trigger and come back on it quickly after each shot. And let's see if we can get that faster. So that was a 0.45 with a 0.19 split. Okay, and that was faster as a 0.4 with a 0.16 split. And that's what you want to do. The idea here is you are hyper-focusing not on the target, okay, but on one thing, and that is to reset and come right back on that trigger as fast as possible. Now, of course, the accuracy of your shots is going to depend on where you are with your fundamentals. If you don't have a good grip, maybe your shots are all over the place, but we are focusing on one thing today, and that is our trigger press. You can fine-tune everything later on. Right now, just reset and prep quickly to get that next shot off. Once you're comfortable with resetting and prepping, or resetting and coming back on for another shot, and you can consistently keep up with your times, now you can begin to experiment with your grip pressures here. Now, I talked about how you first want to do this live fire find out what works, and then go back to dry fire and use that same amount of pressure. Let me emphasize what I was talking about here. If I'm not going to do this live because I don't want the gun to jump out of my hands for real here, but let's say I really lighten up on this grip, and when I shoot live rounds, this gun is moving all around my hands. Like I can't even control it well. That's a pretty good sign that you're not gripping this gun hard enough. Another telltale sign would be, let's say, look at this middle finger. If the gun lifts off of that middle finger, that means I'm not gripping this hard enough. So you want to find that minimum amount of pressure. Notice I'm saying minimum, not maximum. The minimum amount of pressure I need with my firing hand where this gun is not going to move and bounce within my hand, okay? So I find the minimum amount of pressure, and that's going to allow me to have the pressure I need to control the gun while still giving me the maximum amount of dexterity and the speed I'm looking for with my trigger finger. So you're going to have to do this a number of times to find out where that is. You can start off with single shots and find out where the gun begins to flip out of your hand. Then once it stops flipping out of your hand, memorize that pressure. And then now this is where you're going to experiment with articulating your trigger finger faster. I'm going to do one rep of 3 shots, really squeezing hard with my firing hand, okay? Both hands are going to squeeze really hard here. I'll just do 2 shots. Squeezing really hard. Okay, that was really hard, and that was a 0.54. You can already tell, compared to the previous rep that I did at 0.4, right, that just by squeezing hard, I've already decreased my times. 0.54 with a split time of 0.19. Let me do this again, okay? I'm going to squeeze it really hard. Okay, that was a 0.44 with a 0.17. Okay, now I'm going to, yes, that is faster because I am trying to go faster. I'm also trying to beat the timer now, actually react faster than the timer. But now what I'm going to do is really lighten up. Okay, I'm going to lighten up here with my firing hand pressure here. Okay, that was a 0.33, and the split time did not even register. In that particular rep, I was extremely light on my firing hand. Light to the point where I can still get accurate shots, but you can see 0.33, the split time did not register. I'm going to do it again here. Very light on the grip. Okay, I shanked 1 shot there, 0.39, 0.17, but I want to keep that there because I want you to see what I'm doing here is by lightening up on the grip, this is where you begin to understand if I need to grip it a little bit more. So here I see that 1 shot gets shanked over there. Is it a telltale sign that I need to grip it harder? Not necessarily so, because it only happened once. So I'd have to do this 10, 20 times. And if I'm always consistently shanking the second shot somewhere, okay, that means I may need to grip a little harder, right? It's an indication there, okay? But this is the whole process here. What we're trying to do is find the minimum amount of pressure we need to control the gun, which is going to allow us to basically give us the best chance to move our trigger finger quickly. So when you combine this with the first live fire drill, which you can do dry fire as well, resetting, coming back on your trigger to take another shot, combined with just the right amount of pressure on your firing hand, that is going to allow you to physically move your trigger as fast as you possibly can. So in this video, we finally addressed the physical act of squeezing our trigger. What are some things that we can do to articulate our trigger finger faster? And we already talked about it. Reset right away, be prepared for another shot, and then find the right amount of pressure with your firing hand that allows you to control the pistol, yet it allows you to move your trigger finger faster. The previous weeks, we talked about what we can do with our vision, our aiming schemes, in order to be able to approach different targets and use the proper aiming scheme or sight confirmation, whatever you want to call it, that will allow us to really pay attention and really hone in with certain targets, have a steady sights, and then understand where we can get away with shooting faster. That's usually going to be the easier targets for your skill level. Anyways, I hope you guys liked the video, and I hope it helps you improve your speed. Let me know how it goes for you in the comments below. And if you're not already subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button. See you guys next time.